This morning in Minneapolis, federal agents shot and killed a 37-year-old American citizen on a city street. His name was Alex Pretti. He had no criminal record. He was a lawful gun owner with a valid permit to carry. Witnesses say he was helping direct traffic around an area where ICE agents had gathered. And minutes later, he was dead. He's now the third person killed by federal agents in Minneapolis in less than 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, it was Renée Good. She was also 37, a mother of 3, shot in her car by an ICE agent who claimed she was trying to run him over. But the video tells a very different story. Just yesterday, 15,000 people marched through Minneapolis in negative 10-degree temperatures to protest her killing and demand that ICE leave their city. Hundreds of businesses across Minnesota shut their doors in what organizers called a day of truth and freedom, the largest coordinated economic action the state has seen in decades. Restaurants closed, museums closed, coffee shops, bookstores, entire retail districts went dark. Labor unions walked out. Educators walked out. Faith leaders walked out. 100 clergy were arrested at the airport that morning, singing hymns and praying as federal agents took them into custody. Not a single broken window. Not a single injury. Just citizens doing what Americans have done since before there was an America, gathering peacefully to tell their government, enough. Today, federal agents responded by killing someone else. This is why people are reaching back through history and invoking the Boston Massacre. No, it's not a perfect parallel. History never repeats cleanly, but it does rhyme. On March 5th, 1770, British soldiers fired into a crowd of colonists on King Street in Boston, killing 5 men. That massacre did not happen in isolation. It came after months of escalating tension between an occupying military force and an increasingly angered and radicalized population. Protests against the Stamp Act, the Townshend Act, the quartering of troops in private homes, daily humiliation, daily friction. By early 1770, Boston was a city on edge. When the soldiers fired that night, they confirmed what colonists already believed. The Crown no longer saw them as people to protect, but as problems to control. And that comparison to Minneapolis isn't perfect. Federal agents are not a foreign enemy. The government sending them was elected. It operates under constitutional authority. But here's where the comparison gets it right. When agents of the state kill civilians, especially repeatedly, especially under disputed circumstances, especially immediately after massive peaceful protests, it doesn't matter how many legal citations you produce. What matters is the story those deaths tell about the relationship between power and the people it claims to serve. And right now, that story is terrifying. The sequence matters. Yesterday, Minnesota witnessed one of the largest shows of civil resistance in its modern history. Thousands braved dangerous cold. Businesses sacrificed revenue. Clergy risked arrest. Over 100 organizations coordinated action. People suspended the normal order of business to demand de-escalation. And less than 24 hours later, federal agents shot another person dead. The timing is not incidental. It is the message. When 15,000 people tell you to stop, and the response is lethal force, you're not enforcing the law. You're demonstrating that their voices do not matter. Their protests do not matter. Their consent does not matter. That you're announcing the power will not negotiate with dissent. It will suppress it. This is how legitimacy collapses. The British learned that in Boston, you can have legal authority and still lose the consent of the governed. And once that consent is gone, no amount of force can restore it. The Trump administration will claim Alex Pretti's killing was justified. They will flood the zone just as they did after Renée Good's death. They will point to his firearm as if exercising Second Amendment rights in an open carry state is grounds for execution. They will claim Renée Good weaponized her vehicle, even though Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey and our own eyes reviewed the video and called that explanation bullshit. We all saw the video. The government is telling you not to believe your own eyes. This is the difference between authority and legitimacy. Authority comes from law. Legitimacy comes from the people. You can have one without the other, but not for long. The British soldiers in Boston had authority. They were enforcing the law. They believed they were protecting themselves from a hostile crowd, but they had lost legitimacy. And that is why 5 deaths helped ignite a revolution. Not because the deaths were unprecedented, but because they confirmed what people already suspected. Those with power over them were no longer accountable to them. Now, Minneapolis is not 1770. We do have courts and elections, a free press, constitutional protections the colonists could not imagine. We have mechanisms for redress that should prevent escalation like this. But institutions only work when those wielding power care more about that legitimacy than their own control. When federal agents mock grieving neighbors, they are not just being cruel, they are announcing that consent is no longer required. Authority is enough. It is not. Renée Good's killing resonated because it violated something fundamental about how Americans believe power should work. She was not a suspect. She was not threatening anyone. She was a mother in her car. Alex Pretti was not a criminal. He was helping people get through traffic. Their deaths tell a cumulative story, not of isolated incidents, but of a pattern, of a government increasingly comfortable using force, deadly force, against its own citizens. That is why these moments become flashpoints. The Boston Massacre mattered because it confirmed lived experience. Minneapolis in 2026 is doing the same. Rising resistance is being met with rising violence. Economic shutdowns are answered with bullets. Clergy singing hymns are being arrested. Protesters now being killed. The escalation is not random. It's what happens when dissent itself is treated as the threat. This is no longer just about immigration enforcement. It's about the normalization of federal force against American citizens in American cities. It's about the collapse of distinctions that matter between enforcement and occupation, between citizens and enemies, between power and accountability. Alex Pretti is the 3rd person killed in 3 weeks. Renée Good's death was not the beginning, and it will not be the end if this continues. The pace is accelerating. The justifications are thinning, and the resistance is growing. The colonists did not have the tools that we have. They could not vote out the crown. They could not sue soldiers. They could not organize statewide economic shutdowns. We can, and yesterday Minnesota proved it. But tools only work if we use them and officials stay silent. If courts defer blindly, if people accept official narratives over their own eyes, then those tools mean nothing. Minneapolis today shares with Boston in 1770 a single dangerous truth. When the state kills its own people after peaceful mass protest, the consequences ripple far beyond the deaths themselves. These are warnings. What we do with them will determine whether this moment becomes a turning point resolved through democracy or a historical marker like Boston, when it became undeniable that the relationship between the government and the governed had fractured beyond repair. Winter is not coming, it is here. The question is not whether Minneapolis resembles Boston. The question is whether we will use the democratic inheritance bought with revolution to stop this now, or whether we will allow authority and legitimacy to drift so far apart that the only language we left is the one the colonists were forced to speak. And what they spoke was this question: are we a free people or aren't we?